So today we're going to continue our notes on 1-point perspective. So you're going to get that big sheet of paper out if you're working with us in class, or you're just going to get some sketchbook if you're working at home. We're working on our third section. Our first section was 2 cubes. Our second section was a more complex shape with a hole on one side and learning how to do rounded shapes. Today we're going to do something a little bit different, and yours is going to look different from mine because this is mostly like you doing a little bit of practice and get a little bit of guided, but you're not going to be doing the exact same thing as me. Now, this is still 1-point perspective, so we need 2 things to start. We need our separation of ground and sky, the horizon line, and we need our vanishing point. So we're going to start with that. I'm going to go ahead and put this in the middle and go ahead and label it because we want to remember what all these things are. And that is done best by rote repetition. Bam. Horizon line. Now again, your vanishing point can live anywhere on this line, right, left, center, even all the way off our page on an imaginary continuation if it went straight across, anywhere that you want. For mine in particular, I'm going to bring mine off to the right. You can put yours wherever you want. All right, so what makes today's a little different is that instead of me telling you what shape you're going to do, you're going to be doing a letter. That is a letter of the alphabet, and or rather a couple letters from the alphabet, or possibly a small picture. So I'm going to be doing my initials, which are BC. You can do your initials. You want to do 3 shapes though. So since I don't have a middle name, true story, I'm going to have to make up my third little image, and I'm going to make that be a little heart. So if you do not remember, we always start with the front side of the object, and you can't just make something 3D whenever it's like stick letters. It doesn't really work super well. Can you do it? Yes. Is it easy? No. So what you're going to need to do is draw a block or bubble letter to start. If you don't remember how to do a block or bubble letter, here's a quick reminder. So you're going to take your letter. In my case, again, I'm going to start with a B. Draw it like a regular stick, just a regular letter. Then pretend like it's a wall. This is a little car, and you're driving around your wall. Zoom, 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 zoom. If you have sharp corners, it's a block letter. If you have rounded corners, it's a bubble letter. You just got to remember that if you have an inside to your wall, you got to drive around the inside of your wall as well. Bam, wha-bam. Once you're done with that, you can erase the inside skeleton letter, and there you have it, a nice block letter to work from. Now remember, if you're working in 1-point perspective, and we got to find those receding lines, we are going to be using a combination of straight sides and curved sides here. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in my B, and then I'm going to see if you can guess where those receding lines are going to come from. But here's my little map that I can give you. 1, any sharp corner is going to be a receding line in your letter. And, oh, almost forgot one. Double check yourself. And any curve that I have may or may not have a receding line. Here's what I mean by may or may not. If my vanishing point was right here, then I hit this curve where this receding line at that corner is already going to be. Same thing right here on this curve. If I did that, bam, it's going to hit, right here, where this receding line is already going to be. For this smaller one on the inside, same thing, same thing. I hit the edge of my curve where these dots already are. Now, if my vanishing point is elsewhere, say that my vanishing point were over here. If my vanishing point is over here, then I will have a receding line from the edge of my curve right here. I might not have one from right here. It might line up with this one. So it is going to be dependent. You might not, you may have one from each of those curves. That's something you're going to have to think about. So what I want you to take a second to do is draw your initials. And if you're like me and you have like no middle initial to do, give yourself some simple shape like a little heart, star, horseshoe, clover, blue moon, pots of golden rainbows, and a red balloon. Some quick tips before you get too far. First off, do yourself a favor for this exercise and do not give yourself the skinniest letter known to man. You're going to find that there's a lot of receding lines that are really close together whenever you make your letter really skinny, and it's going to make your job difficult whenever you're trying to draw the back of the shape. Same thing happens if you put your letters really close together. You're gonna have a lot of receding lines all stacked on top of one another, and it's gonna make your life a little bit difficult as we are learning and practicing. Making your life difficult is for whenever you've practiced a little bit more. So you'll see that mine are spread out. Mine are really thick little letters, and they're mostly pretty big. I'm not drawing them too little. That's just to help myself give myself room, all right? So double check yourself, fix yourself if you have a problem. All right, so at this point you should be just about ready to start drawing your receding lines, but I have a few tips for you, especially whenever you get super complicated shapes like my B here. Sometimes that's a lot of receding lines, and they're very easy to start mixing up with one another. So I have a few tips to know which ones you really do need versus which ones you don't. Now, mind you, the thing to remember is that just because you don't need to draw it all the time doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It's still going to be there. So whenever you're thinking about drawing your backside of your shape, you still need to remember that those are there, they do exist, and you still need to treat the lines that you're drawing as though they're there, but they would be erased later, or they might be completely covered up. So, you know, stuff. So right here you can see this C, this one only has the receding lines that I would need drawn filled in. There's still going to be a receding line here. There's one here that's overlapped by this line right here. And there's a receding line from over here that I just didn't draw. Given enough time, you can start figuring out which ones you really need and which ones you don't. And you might get to the point where you only need to draw this. Or you might get to the point where you need this, where you draw in the receding line that you can see, and the receding line that you can't see, you leave as a dotted line. Now, over here at the B, we're gonna practice that. We're gonna figure out which ones we need versus which ones we don't. All right, so here's what you're gonna do to decide whether or not you actually need any of the receding lines you're drawing. And I do suggest starting to do this with any super complex shapes that you have, or even just more basic shapes if you need to, because it's a nice way to kind of differentiate some of your receding lines, especially when you've got a lot of them. All right, so we're gonna start from the bottom and we're gonna work our way up. I'm gonna stick my ruler here. You'll notice that if I start drawing from this point towards my vanishing point, there's nothing between me and my vanishing point. So this entire receding line, we need it. Bam, there it goes. If I move one up, whoop, to this one, if I start drawing from here and I go towards my vanishing point, I'm going to draw immediately into my shape. It goes in right here. You can see it right there. It goes into the inside of my shape. This means it is not ever going to be visible to me at any point for any reason. So this one I'm going to draw as a dotted line. It's hard to do dotted lines in eraser marker. All right, so we've done this one, we've done this one, we're gonna pop up to this one. This one is a little different. It's like this one, it starts and it's not in your shape at all. It's like in this gap in the middle, but then it crosses over into our shape. So we're gonna have it solid up until it hits our shape, and then after that, it'll be dotted. Again, once it's dotted, that's one that I'm gonna need to erase, either completely or partially like this one. That one's gonna go on. And I can keep doing all of my receding lines like this. This one right here is gonna be dotted. Dot, 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 dot. It's hard to do on an expo marker. This one right here is also gonna be dotted. This one's really close to this other one, so I'm trying not to let them become one. Really close together. We've got this one, which is solid for a split second, and then it becomes dotted. All right, and then that should be, oh, I forgot this one. Didn't even remember to put a dot on it. This one goes straight into my shape, so it will also be dotted. Dang, I've got like this festival of dotted lines really close together. Hence, if they were all on a smaller thing, they'd be all the same line. All right, now looking at my curves, I can tell you right now that this curve will obviously be from the same receding line, so I don't need to draw a new one. Over here, if I'm coming over, bam, I'm gonna have right here, this one hits nothing, so it's gonna be solid. This one right here will be solid to here, and then it hits that B and it becomes dotted after that. And there's gonna be some more right here and right here. This one is basically in line with one I already have. This one would need a new one. So this one is gonna be a dotted line. And then it basically converges to those. All right, so again, that's a whole lot of lines and a whole lot of mess. So whenever you're drawing the back side of your shape, you do want to be extra and extremely careful because again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like 13 or 14 different lines that I just had to draw. That's a lot. So I'm gonna start with probably the easiest line to see, which is this back side of the bee. It's a nice straight line and it goes between this dotted line right here, this receding line, and this receding line. Boop. Now, if I just leave it there like this, I can tell you right now, I'm gonna have something go incorrect because these are not quite parallel. It's close, but not quite there. So I'm gonna fix that really fast. I drew too quickly. All right. And again, just like I'm doing any other shape, I'm going to be looking at my different lines and curves and receding lines to make sure that these things match across. So this one will come up here until it hits this receding line right there, and it's gonna come up at about this angle and have just a little bit of a curve on the end. It's gonna bounce back until it hits this group of receding lines, which is gonna be right there. It's gonna come up and hit my solid one up here, boop, like that. And that's gonna curve all the way down here. Now I could come in and put the little parts of my bees as well, but I can tell you this right now, I'm not actually gonna see them because this entire piece right here is gonna be solid. So I'm not gonna draw those. But if I did, I'd be able to look that they're between this receding line and this one right here. So I could add them in if I wanted. That probably needs to be a little further over like that. So I can add them in if I want, but again, all of this is gonna be solid, so it's not really gonna be a big deal. Now, just like I do any other time, I can erase any lines that are beyond the back side of my shape, which are gonna be back here. I can erase any lines that are on the inside of my shape. Because I've made all of these nicely dotted versus solid lines, I can start erasing any that are dotted. And because I know that this is all gonna be one solid shape, I can erase anything that's over here. So my 3D bee is gonna look something like this. All right, so what you wanna do is you wanna finish off all of your letters and shapes. And eventually, once you get practiced enough, you're gonna be able to do what I'm doing with this C right here. So I only drew the ones that I know I'm going to need. And here's what I'm gonna do after that. I'm gonna start with the lines that I can see. I can see that this is one of the sides that I need to end. So I'm going to draw a curve that matches the top of my C right here. And about the same distance away, I'm gonna draw a line that is parallel to this one and one that's parallel here. Now, if I erase all this, I can see that part of my C is 3D and part of it is not. The part that isn't is right here, so I need to make the curve that matches that right about here. It technically comes up like this and it technically goes over like that, but again, that's not part that I'm gonna see, so I'm leaving that off. Again, that comes with practice. You're gonna learn where you can do that as you work and as you practice at this more and you start getting used to how that works. Do not think that you can immediately do it unless you've done this before. Same thing with my little heart. I'm gonna draw my back side right here. I'm not gonna see any of this stuff. And I might see a smidgy of like back over here, like that, but it's gonna be like the tiniest smidge alive. And it'll look something like that. All right, so your goal is to get all of your letters and complicated shapes finished. So you have your own initials or your first and last initial in a cute little simple picture. When I say a simple picture, I do mean like a heart, a star, horseshoe, something that isn't a basic square. We've already learned how to do that. So challenge yourself a little. But once you're done with that, you're done with section 3.